Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good night, however and whenever you may be listening. Thank you for stopping into another fantabulous episode of the Take It Easy podcast. It is Friday, December 6th. Since we won't talk to you tomorrow, not so happy anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And I am so freaking excited. So excited because this is going to be a ridiculous football weekend. Think about this. By the time we come back Monday, we're going to know exactly who's in the college football playoff, where every single team is going to a bowl game. We're going to have seen the 49ers take on the Saints. We're going to have seen, that's at 10 a.m. The 1 o'clock, we're going to see Mahomes and the Chiefs versus the Patriots. Cap off that Sunday night with the Seahawks taking on the Rams. Oh my gosh, it's going to be phenomenal. And the winter meetings start in baseball. They've already basically gotten started with the Padres making another move, getting Tommy Pham from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for Hunter Renfroe, and as Blake Snell described it on his Twitch last night, a slap bleep prospect. And that is funny. And the Padres got another prospect in return, another one of Tampa Bay's not quite top prospects, but a very good prospect who can play all utility positions and pitch. So that's pretty cool. But let's talk football, because that is what we're here to do. And we're going to start off with the NFL and then digress into college, because while championship weekend is a big deal in college football, usually a lot doesn't change. The only thing is that win and in situation for Georgia. This whole weekend revolves around Georgia, barring chaos at the top, aka Wisconsin does some bleep to mess with it. So let's talk about the NFL first. And as we do every week, we break down every single game. This week we got 14 on Sunday. Any given Sunday, baby, because all the bye weeks are done now. So we got 9 morning games, 4 afternoon games, a Sunday night game, and we're going to break down Giants-Eagles. But first, we must discuss what happened last night, because Mitchell Trubisky balled out. And I cannot believe Mitchell Trubisky balled out last night. It's honestly dumbfounding to see that, and then see the Cowboys, who are now 6-7, and really they've fallen off a cliff. Despite continuing to feed Zeke, which was a good strategy, they have really fallen off a cliff, and they have peaked. It's time to move on from the coach. It's time to move on from the dynasty. I've been calling for trading Zeke this offseason ever since August. If things didn't work out, which they clearly have not, I thought things would be a lot better for the Dallas Cowboys this year. I was wrong. When you lose to the Bears and that offense puts up 31 points and Trubisky has 4 total touchdowns, I will admit your team is kind of bleep. So, let's get into the real football coming up this weekend. And by real football, I mean 3 games. Niners-Saints, Chiefs-Patriots, Seahawks-Rams. And we talk about all the games, but these 3 are huge. In fact, I'm also going to test myself on the gambling picks this week, because last week we had our first 5-0 week of the season. So this week I'm going to test myself by picking the 5 biggest games of the weekend. And we're just going to start with the 10 o'clock game, the Niners taking on the Saints. 49ers have a brutal schedule down the stretch, but that's not the new part. What's new is the fact that they have to go into the Superdome against the Saints team that has been pretty much on fire the entire season, with a couple slip-ups here and there. But other than that, that offense is rolling like it did last year, despite thoughts that there was no way that would happen. Clearly wrong on that front. I saw the Saints regressing, and somehow they've been just as strong as they were last year as they come down the home stretch. But last year they also peaked early on and struggled, sputtered to the home stretch offensively. And we'll see what happens to them this year. But Michael Thomas is playing out of his mind. They have now, Latavius Murray is actually doing the Mark Ingram role better than Mark Ingram did. And he can fill in. Not that he's a better back than Mark Ingram, because Mark Ingram's putting up better numbers with Baltimore, but the role that he's being asked to play, he's doing it a lot better than Mark Ingram, and then he plugs in, and the offense keeps rolling with him, even if it's a different style than Alvin Kamara. So that offense is rolling despite the fact the offensive line is a little more depleted. They've given Breeze great protection this year. I've seen plays where Breeze is dropping back. He steps up one, and it's like the Red Seas have parted in the pocket. So his offensive line is doing a lot of good work for him, especially his left tackle and his right tackle. Eric McCoy filled in for the center position this year, and he's done a fair job so far. And if there's anything that separates the San Francisco from New Orleans, it's that stout defense. But we know Drew Brees can get 75% completion percentage on anyone. And we know Mike Thomas, if he's not the best receiver in the league, he's a top 2 now. DeAndre Hopkins and him are universally 1 and 2 at this point. I like the Saints minus 2.5 to cover and win this football game at home. And it's 2.5 because the Saints are at home. It could be a close game, but this one I could see the Saints putting a good number on the San Francisco 49ers. I honestly believe that. Now, I think at the start of the season we had this game circled down as the game of the season. And I think it got lost in the shuffle with all the incredible matchups we've had this year, because the NFL is very top-heavy. So, the Chiefs, Mahomes, Hill, Andy Reid, Kelsey, an offense that just put up a 40-burger on the Oakland Raiders, and they took down I won't say that. So anyways, the Chiefs are going into Foxborough this weekend against Brady, the number 1 defense in the league, an offense that has been sputtering for the Patriots, but I have a theory and a feeling based on, they're the Patriots and the way they've played throughout this year, where Brady's still top 5 in pass yards in the league, that a defense is like a microwave. It can just turn on in any moment and really get the gears rolling. That could be this weekend. It could not. And does the defense have enough to stop Mahomes is another interesting question. And I honestly don't know. I don't know how Mahomes will play in Foxborough. I don't know. This would be a good thing to know, is the temperature this weekend. But I expect Mahomes could have a big time performance, or he could have a dud. And I honestly don't know at this point. Sunday, 38, sunny. Okay, it's just going to be cold for Mahomes in Foxborough. And I'm going to pick the Chiefs, and they're getting 3 points. So I'm going to take the Chiefs +3 because it's just good gambling value. That does not mean I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think this game is going to go right down to the wire. And Mahomes, where there's a will, there's a way. I believe in Patrick Mahomes going up against Tom Brady because I am a homosexual. I can say that. Ma-homosexual. I like that better than a Mahomie. But the Chiefs will get to 9-4. Patriots 10-3. Everything is falling into place. It's a game that Belichick usually doesn't lose, except for that one time he did lose to Alex Smith and Kareem Hunt. Also that one time he lost to Peyton Manning. But anyways, I think the Chiefs will pull this one out. I don't know. I can't say that with certainty, but I can say they'll keep it within 3 in terms of winning a gambling pick. It's going to be a fun bleeping game. I think that's one of those. I think we've had like 3 now this year. This is one of those must-watch football games. If we're talking about the Seahawks Rams from earlier in the year, if we can count the Rams Saints, the one where Drew Brees got hurt and that kind of ruined it a little bit, that Seahawks Niners game on Monday Night Football, that is one of those must-watch games, Kansas City and New England this weekend. And the other big game, you can cap off your football Sunday with your sensory overload and all that. You can cap it off with a second iteration of Seahawks Rams. I don't know if you remember from the very beginning, but I said the first time they played, this game means everything for the Rams and nothing for the Seahawks. I feel fairly confident saying that again, but it does mean a little bit more to the Seahawks than it did for the Rams last time, because the Rams need a win. They're fending off, trying to fight for their playoff lives. And Jared Goff picked apart the Cardinals' defense last weekend, and it's games like that make you think Jared Goff is a legitimate quarterback, when clearly he is not worth the money that he got. I know I bag on Jared Goff a lot, and I'm frustrated that the Rams paid him. Not even a Rams fan, just frustrated the Rams didn't get to try out a new innovative strategy. Always forward thinking. And the Rams didn't do that. But Goff picked apart the Cardinals, hasn't picked apart very many teams this year, and he needs to win against the Seahawks. This is basically a must-win given what the Bears have done, given what the Vikings are going to continue to do, including play the Bears. That could take care of itself down in Week 17 if it hadn't taken care of itself at that point. And Minnesota doesn't, Los Angeles doesn't need to, Los Angeles needs to find a way to get Gurley involved in the offense this time, because when they're a two-dimensional offense, when they can run these play-action plays and establish a critical run game with what was one of the best backs in the league, they're still dominant, as we saw against Arizona last weekend. And I think we kind of knew it was there, but Goff has just regressed so much, and we don't know which of Gurley's is attributed to injuries and which isn't. It feels like a lot of it is injuries, but also chronic injuries, not things that are going to get better, like arthritis in your knee is not going to go away with time. So in that game, it's a 1-point line right now. I am going to take the Rams because they're fighting for their lives, and Russell Wilson has to be big-time Russell Wilson in order to win this game against that team on this day in Los Angeles. Russell Wilson has to be Russell bleepin' Wilson this time. Is he going to do that? Probably. That's why he's an MVP candidate. But the Rams are ready for him, and they almost beat him last time, and they are going to be motivated to beat him this time. Okay, so I'm just going to continue down the list here. Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills. I have the Ravens 5.5 over Buffalo. Is that a little disrespectful on Buffalo, since they just beat the Cowboys and then had basically a second bye week, or like the Thursday night to Sunday 10-day off day? Yeah. Are they playing at home? Yeah. But Lamar's freaking good. And not only is Lamar freaking good, Lamar and that Ravens team is rolling. This is very much a trap game, but I think they're too good at this point for that to be an issue. They should be able to take care of the Bills. Lastly, Broncos and Texans. I'm going to go contrarian a little bit here and take the Broncos +9. They're coming off of a win, going to Houston. Houston's rolling. And I think the fact that we just saw Houston beat the Patriots kind of sways the betting and the public opinion on that team. But don't get too ahead of yourselves on those Houston Texans, because things can change in an instant, and we've seen them play some really bad games this year, like really bad, and we've seen them recently. And as much as I love Deshaun Watson, I am a fan of Drew Lock as well, so they will not win outright. The Texans will beat the Broncos, because simple football analysis, the Broncos are a bad team, the Texans are a good team. But 9.5, they can cover that. All right, next up we have the Bengals and the Browns. I want to keep believing in the Bengals, but it's not going to happen this time. The Browns' offense is rolling. I saw a crazy stat that Devontae Parker has more receiving yards than Odell Beckham this year and 3 times as many touchdowns. That's even sadder than my Allen Robinson stat, that Allen Robinson has 3 times as many touchdowns as Odell Beckham. Their kicker also has 1 less receiving touchdown than Odell Beckham this year. Been a rough year. Bengals going on the road, they're still not good enough, especially not against this Browns team. The Browns will get to 6-7 this week. That's kind of the inevitable, so let's do the actual analysis part of this game. One of these Browns players is going to break out, whether it's Chubb, Odell, or I guess Baker, but that one's not really, because Baker's had big-time performances this year, and it all relies on Baker having a solid game. If I had to make a pick, I would say Chubb, because Baker is on the mend, and yeah. Let's talk about that Monday Night Football game, the Eagles and Giants, because it's the return of Mr. Eli Manning for one final ride, going into Philadelphia to try and swipe the hearts of Eagles fans who are feeling good about themselves now because the Cowboys lost, so they are feeling like they can get back into this thing, get to 6-7, and set up a Week 16 against the Cowboys for the division, for a playoff spot. But don't sleep on Mr. Eli Manning. No matter how washed and beat up he may be. It's also the 2-year anniversary of Ben McAdoo being fired, which is still to this day hilarious, because McAdoo got fired for being right. Like, getting rid of Eli Manning was the right choice at that time, and ownership was like, no, that is not how it will work here. He was loyal to us and we will be loyal to him. And yeah, it might have cost him the chance to draft Patrick Mahomes. Whoopsies. They still got Saquon Barkley though. That's really helped them a lot this year. Eagles will win that game. I don't know about point spread, but I've already submitted my 5 picks, so we chill in there. Titans and Raiders. I'll tell you what, man. We can really make a comeback. My name is John Gruden. And it starts this weekend, Mr. Gruden, because the Titans are playing really, really good football. But this is a trap game of all trap games for Tennessee. Do I believe in the Titans? 100%. Do the Titans have to win this game this weekend? 100%, because they got the Texans twice and the Saints to close out the season. And if they want to get that wild card, they're going to have to win probably 2 of those, at least 1, and hope for a prayer on the tiebreaker. So this one's got to be a win. Got to be a win this weekend for Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry, let's talk Derrick Henry's free agency for a quick moment. I would expect them to franchise tag him because paying the running back position is obviously difficult. But the other issue is if you want to franchise tag Tannehill and pay him $27 a year, that would be extraordinarily dumb. But I heard that be proposed on Bill Barnwell's article this week where he does a little QB roulette style thing. That would be extraordinarily dumb. One, because you need the franchise tag for Henry, and two, the verdict should kind of be out on Tannehill. He's either, it's not him that's getting you the wins. He's just better than Mariota. That's the only thing. So it's not anything special that Tannehill's doing. If he makes the playoffs, I understand locking him into a long-term deal because you feel that with Tannehill, things will only get better for the Titans with a full season of Tannehill. And you're right, that'll probably only last 1 year, and then you'll have 3 more years of Tannehill and be like, geesh, we probably shouldn't have done that. And at which point, I'm basically describing the perfect scenario for the franchise tag. If they really believe, but you can find Tannehills all over the place. The Dolphins let him go for free. There are Tannehills everywhere, especially in this year's free agent class. Now, Tannehill was a former top pick who had playoff experience, but so was Mariota. And you can get Mariota out there anywhere this offseason. You can go get Andy Dalton anywhere this offseason. There are quarterbacks growing on bleeping trees. So, this started with Derrick Henry, and now it's turning into Tannehill. Tighten up. Just got to keep believing in those Tennessee Titans. All right, next up, Washington and the Packers. This one will probably be a candidate for forgettable game of the week as we come up on Sunday. They're getting 13 points, which is pretty dang ridiculous. So instead of talking about the outcome, which is inevitable, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. And we talk about Aaron Rodgers a lot. It's been a long football season. We've had to talk about a lot of these dudes a lot of times. But with Aaron Rodgers, the team starts and finishes with him. And I've been looking out, especially in the last couple of weeks, I've been looking for some tensions between him and LeFleur. Hasn't been a ton, but something to keep an eye on as we head down the home stretch. Panthers and Falcons. The Falcons are favored. The Panthers are punting on the season. So what comes from this game might be, what comes from this game might be just in terms of pride and figuring out the Panthers have a huge quarterback question at this point. But I do like them to beat the Falcons because the Falcons are just too damn inconsistent for me to believe anything. Don't bet on the Falcons this weekend. Don't bet on the Falcons ever for the rest of this season. Also, Devonta Freeman is still the 5th highest paid running back in the NFL. That is pretty damn remarkable given the events that have transpired thus far. The Vikings are actually getting 13 points against the Lions, which is the same as the Washington-Green Bay one. That's a little disrespectful. But David Blau might be starting again, or this guy blows, as the joke I like to make. And if he is, that would be a cool little storyline, I guess. I don't know. Vikings win that game. We'll talk about it on Monday. We'll give it a little bit of thought. Chargers and Jaguars. The disappointment bowl, the bad quarterback bowl, but Gardner Minshew goes in. I'm tempted to pick the Jaguars in this game just because of Minshew mania and the potential of Phillip Rivers getting benched is intriguing to me now. As much as I hate it because Phillip Rivers is my idol, my childhood kid loving Phillip Rivers. Every San Diego kid knows how to do the Phillip Rivers throw. Trust me, I can do it too. I'm doing it as I speak right now with my phone. What happened to Leonard Fournette, man? After that start of the year, he was like the number 1 rusher in the NFL through 5 weeks. I just have not heard his name, and I think it's a little bit disappointing. Is it disappointment, or is it just the Jaguars haven't been in the news? Let's see. Leonard Fournette. Stat line. 38 yard. Oh, wow. He's getting a lot of receptions. He's a big part of the pass catching now. He's coming up on 1,000 yards. Rough game against Tampa. Under 100 yard. Rough game. Wow, yeah. A lot of rough games. That's why. Over the last month, Fournette has averaged, like three and change yards per carry. That's not good. So, I was right about my intuition. I love that I can do that. Like, I just have an intuition about something and I turn out to be right. And it's not that I'm watching Jaguars games that close. It's just we're not talking about Leonard Fournette anymore. So, disappointing year in what had a lot of promise. Kind of what Panthers fans were afraid would happen with Christian McCaffrey down the home stretch. Colts and Bucks. There's so many games, so I'm going to make this one brief. Jacoby Brissett, make or break game. If they lose, playoff chances over. Brissett might not be the quarterback next year in Indy, but he's under contract regardless, and that's their weak link. They're probably going to draft a corner with one of their top picks, or maybe an edge rusher, but Justin Houston has done the job sufficiently this year. He's not a long-term option is the issue, though. Do I have any idea who's going to win this game? No. I've started to come around on the Bucks because they're the third highest scoring offense in the NFL, and that's pretty damn ridiculous. I'm also just a hater of Jameis Winston, and I can now see a situation in which Jameis became the starter next year until Bruce Arians was hesitant to give him any kind of credence of what is to come next year for Mr. Winston. I could see them dishing out big dollars to Ryan Tannehill, like a 4-year deal the way the Titans might, if Tannehill does end up leading them to the playoffs. Speaking of Tannehill leading them to the playoffs, their biggest competition in that race is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I love what the Steelers have done, and I love the idea that they lost their starting quarterback, their star running back, their star receiver, the replacement to their star running back, the replacement to their star receiver, ended up losing. Their backup quarterback got benched for a duck, and they still end up at 7-5, which is pretty damn remarkable from what we've seen so far from Tomlin and company. And they're gonna end something like that.